see, make sure that we're live. We are live. Okay, well, thank you very much for joining us for another heart-to-heart conversation. Um, we had already done this conversation in Spanish, but we wanted to bring it out to a broader audience because I think the topic is really interesting and important in this day of what we're doing. You know, we're so near the holidays that it's important to talk about this. Just remember that this is a presentation. If you make any questions, if you have any questions, you can go ahead and do so in our chat over here in Facebook. But this is not private. So just remember, everybody can read your question. And also remember that this is not a therapy. It's not professional advice of any kind. The professional advice really comes during the therapy. So just keep that in mind. And today we're going to be talking about how to prevent abuse during the child abuse during the holidays. And we have, my name's Guillermo Castañeda. I'm an OPCS here at Counseling of El Paso, and I have with me Letica Quezada. She's a psychotherapist here Counseling of El Paso, and she is a licensed clinical social worker. She did her master's in social work at the California State University in Long Beach. And so she has a lot of experience backing her up, especially in the LA County DCFS. What does DCFS stand for, Leti?
Department of Children and Family Services.
Okay, so it's a little bit longer than what we have over here in Texas. Here in Texas, we have the Child Protector Services, but they do the same work. And so we're going to be talking about the abuse. Should we get started?
Sure. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I think I would like to start by talking about the fact that the state of Texas included in its laws that all of us are responsible for the safety and protection of our children.
Mm-hmm.
Many of the states make it mandatory for professionals, working with children. But Texas is saying we are all responsible to take care of our children, the children in the state. And the Department of Families and Protective Services recognizes also that they cannot do a good job, a good, thorough job without the help and involvement of the whole community.
So what that means, it's because we used to think before, like, if I'm not the one in charge of the child, or if I'm not a professional, I don't have to talk about it. I can just let it go. But what do you mean, everybody? Do you mean from like teachers, from even karate instructors to swimming instructors, parents, cousins, everybody?
Everybody, neighbors, friends, relatives, everybody that has some information about a child being suspected of being abused is not really, we don't really need to know for sure. It's just if we have a suspicion, it is our obligation to do something about it in order to protect the children. Also, the Department of Family and Protective Services in its website put some information that I found to be interesting and very important. For example, it says that of all the children living in the United States, 1 out of 10 lives in Texas. We know that Texas is a big state, but I didn't think that we had that many children. Of that 10%, 1/3 is younger than 6 years old. Why is this important? Because all children younger than 6 are the most at risk. They are, in most cases, isolated in their family homes with very little contact with people other than the family. And if abuse is being occurring in the home, it's going to take a lot longer to be found out in detriment of those children.
I was looking at a video, and it said that this extreme, I can't remember, it was an extreme amount of like a percentage. It was in the 80s or 90s, 80s, I think. And I just watched this video. Sorry, I watched this video on YouTube. And it said that most of the children that are abused, it's from the house, or like somebody they knew, right?
It's in their homes. Yes, exactly.
Wow. Okay.
That is true. And if they are young and they are not of school age yet, who's protecting them, especially if the abuse is occurring in the home.
Okay. Okay. And so in it's really important to understand what do we mean by abuse, because many times when we say abuse, it's more like I guess the child that gets hit. Is that the most common, or is that the most common for the people to understand?
Well, actually, we can identify 4 types of abuse, and the first one being precisely physical abuse. What does that involve? Is all different types of marks, bruises, bluish marks on the kids, bite marks, burns, and that would go even to severe fractures and even death. So that this is probably the one most visible, because we can see the marks and bruises. And this is the abuse that is usually, law enforcement has to be called in when there are marks and bruises, because these are facts. These are something that they can prove and take the abusers to court. So that's physical abuse.
So the physical abuse, because a lot of people are probably wondering about this, especially since we've kind of changed the pattern of how a child is raised. Many people would wonder, is spanking physical abuse?
Well, any time of punishment that produces marks, that means that is a lot stronger than it should be, a lot more severe than it should be. So spanking usually does not show marks. If you ask a police officer, they are usually going to tell you, no, it's not abuse. In the department where I work, we used to strongly recommend that they would not use, any physical punishment. Use all other kinds of discipline like timeouts and, things like that, instead of using physical abuse.
What's the corporal punishment? Is there a reason why they would say don't use it?
This type of punishment is effective. I have to say that it's effective. What does that mean? Do I mean by that? It is effective because it extinguishes the behavior. It can, it can stop whatever behavior the child is doing if he's afraid of being hit, for instance, he's going to stop for fear. But it's not recommended because it produces psychological effects on the child.
Okay.
It's difficult to say it that way, but you know that animals are trained that way.
Mm.
So it's you want in a pet or an animal to stop doing something that you don't want them to do. You may use some type of physical punishment, and the behavior would be extinguished. But
So
I'm not saying that the animals are not important. Of course they are. But I'm just as a way of comparison, a child is going to bring it to his mind and think of not being loved if he's being treated like that.
so it's more like the discipline is really not, it's not like the child is going to respect you. It's more like he will fear you, right?
And he may have, feelings of anger, toward the parent not being explained because he's afraid of getting punished again, but he still has those feelings. I'm not being loved. I'm not being respected as a human being.
And that can bring up a lot of issues, as the
Mhm.
child grows older, because we're talking
Uh-huh.
about self-esteem, we're talking about
Right,
trust, we're talking
right.
about just being able to live without fear.
Uh-huh. Yes.
And so you say that it's effective, but it sounds a little bit more like short term to midterm,
Yeah,
maybe.
because I just say effective in a way that it
It will stop
extinguishes the
the,
behavior, but
yeah,
that's it. That's it. I'm
right.
not recommending it in any way.
No, 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 of course not.
Yes.
And so there is the idea that, well, if I don't spank my child is going to do anything they want to, because that's it. That's spanking equals discipline for many people.
Right. Mhm.
And so if they don't spank, their child can do whatever.
And many parents, I remember when I was doing child abuse investigations, many parents would be angry, and of course, you're judging my parenting skills and my love of my kids, and they will say, are you saying that we cannot discipline our child because you know that if we don't discipline them, they're going to go into drugs or other behaviors that are not accepted. But I will always tell them, we are not saying that you cannot discipline your child. Of course, it's not only your right; it's your responsibility to discipline your child. But we're saying do not um, punish them in a way that the possibility of being hurt is very high.
Okay. Okay. So there are many ways to do what
Many
we
ways,
call corporal
discipline.
punishment.
Yes.
So firm but loving at the same time.
Right. And I think children respect their parents when they realize that they are saying, they're giving the message, I love you, you're my son, but
Mhm.
I don't like your behavior. I don't like what you did. So this is the reason I'm disciplining you. And I
Got it.
think children can get the message. It's not, they're not retrieving their love. They're still my parents, but they do not like the behavior. And that's the reason I'm being punished
Okay.
or
Well,
disciplined.
very good.
Mhm.
Well, thank you. Thank you for clarifying that, because I think it's really important for people to understand that, in a way, there's this fine line between physical abuse and corporal punishment. that, it could be crossed at any moment out of
Mhm.
anger. I think that you were saying something about the times when children are more physically abused, right?
Yes. Um, many parents get angry. They do not have control over their anger, and they decide to discipline the child in the moment when they are very angry. So it's very difficult to judge how strongly you are as a man, grown up, man or a woman, grown up with the little child. So you can be hitting them much more strongly than you think you are because
Right.
because of your size and also the anger. The anger.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, the size
Yeah.
is really a lot bigger than a child. And what time of the year it when we notice more abuse?
Usually whenever there are holidays, people get together, people get um, a lot of anxiety because, like on Christmas time, they want to gifts for everybody. These are very hard times. People are on edge. Um, there are a lot of needs in the home, and anxiety can be very much there because of COVID and all the things that have happened in the past 2 years.
True.
So this is a time that is very risky.
Mm,
Also, when like big sports, when you make bets and lose, you're going to be um, not very happy, and it could be a lot easier for you to lose your temper
like the
in some
Super Bowl, right?
in those situations.
Like the Super Bowl is a huge event.
Yes, the Super Bowl actually is um, that has proven to have the most child abuse phone calls to the hotlines because of the same situation, the same feelings of the
So
parent.
I guess as prevention, be careful with your anger, but absolutely maybe not even betting during those games.
Uh-huh. Yes, exactly. And then knowing that that may happen, and it's not the children's fault that you're losing money, or we understand you get frustrated if you lose, but we have to take care of the children.
Right. So what other type of abuse?
Well, another one is neglect.
Mm-hmm.
And neglect, we could say that is the deprivation of the most basic needs like nutrition, healthcare, cleanliness, appropriate clothing. The most obvious signs of neglect would be malnutrition. You may see children begging for food outside of restaurants. They have dirty clothing, dental care or medical care that is not being taken care of. Many of those signs can be signs of neglect.
Okay, and that uh, how about leaving children at home?
Leaving children at home by themselves, of course, is also neglect. Um, there are no specific ages. Sometimes parents ask, at what age can I leave my children alone at home?
Mhm.
There are no specific ages. It has to do with the maturity of the child, that the child understands who they can call, or even if the next door neighbor is watching for them, or it would have to be that they know how to avoid being hurt if left alone.
Okay, and how about how about say for example the parent drinks or they take some pills or medicine or maybe even drugs or I don't know, paraphernalia or anything like that. If you just have it lying around, what happens?
Well, that's definitely negligence, of course, neglect. Anything that is left uh, in places where the children have access to them um, is neglect, because they can be really hurt with them. In some situations, parents would leave a gun and they would say, "This gun is not loaded," but the child somehow knows where the bullets are and knows how to put the bullets in there. I mean, it's very, very dangerous for that child.
Right,
Mhm.
right. Okay.
Well, the same with drugs and alcohol. I mean, children are curious, and if they have access to all that, they may want to try, especially if they have seen their parents do that, consume those.
Right. And also porn or magazines or anything like that.
Exactly, exactly, and that is actually part of sexual abuse. Also, you know, having pornographic magazines or shows accessible to the children.
Okay. So that brings us to sexual abuse.
Yeah, maybe we can talk next about sexual abuse. Sexual abuse can be defined as exploitation of children for the sexual pleasure of an adult. Examples of that are incest, rape, inappropriate touching, showing pornography to the children or making them participate in child pornography. Um, there are specific signs that are observed in the victim that can tell us if a child has been sexually molested. Of course, sexually transmitted diseases, injury to the genitals, pregnancy at a very young age, uh, extreme fear of being alone with someone, naming body parts with street names, especially very young children, knowledge of sexual relations at a very young age, and sexually acting out or even um, abusing other children.
Wow. Okay. So that's
Yeah.
that's that's like the abused becoming the abuser.
Right, right. Minors abusing minors. Mhm. And many minors that have been sexually molested can act out that way. The children, especially younger children,
Right.
they are in a way imitating what was done to them.
So it's I'm guessing that statutory rape would fall under sexual abuse as well, right?
What was that? I'm sorry.
The statutory rape.
Uh-huh. Yes, it's also considered sexual abuse, even though sometimes, um, minor kids would say, I want to be with this person, but the difference in age is, very important. If they are very close, I believe that in Texas, 16 and 17 is not considered statutory rape because
Right.
they are so close in age.
And that means that the child is not mature enough to make those decisions to say like, oh, okay, well, I want to be with this person.
Right, exactly. I mean, it's not like an adult decision to live in a marriage situation, or, so,
Yeah, because many times, the person would say like, oh, okay, well, it's 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 not just me, the other person wanted to be with me. And it's like,
right.
no, they don't have the maturity to make those decisions.
Yes, especially if the other person is older, the younger person can be manipulated into believing that she or he wants to be there.
Right. Okay.
Mhm. And maybe we can talk about the warning signs of the abuser.
Uh-huh.
There are, warning signs. For instance, always wants to be alone with children, discourages other adults being in the same place or participating in activities. And by the way, all of these are not necessarily true if there is only one of these signs, but it's a group of signs that would be very much in a sexual abuser.
Okay.
Others can be, he would give gifts to the children, and most often without the parents' permission, or they would say, this is our secret. Goes overboard touching, always wants to wrestle and tickle, and we usually would start doing that to see how the child responds. And if the child seems to like it, they would go more serious. Also, in general, sexual abusers don't think that the rules apply to them. Even if they know you're not supposed to be alone with these kids, they still do it. He also allows children to engage in activities that the parents would not let them. Again, using that idea, this is between us, this is our secret. Uses their language or tells dirty jokes to the kids.
Mhm.
Shows them pornography and taking photos without the approval of the parents. So most of these things are done in secrecy with.
And what's I've heard of the term grooming. What exactly does that mean?
Well, grooming is the way that you work little by little toward the other person accepting your advances or the things that you're doing. You start by being very nice. The children like you a lot. Yeah. The gifts are very simple. It's not something complicated or something that they would feel afraid to tell their parents, things like that. So grooming, unfortunately, is what helps the offender to get the child ready to be abused. Because little by little, they are not as afraid or as, doubting what this is. They get used to being touched, to being put in a situation where they are going to be abused.
Okay.
Mhm.
And so what's there's a fourth
Yes,
abuse.
it's emotional abuse.
Uh-huh.
Emotional abuse is mental or emotional injuries that result in detriment of normal growth or psychological functioning of the children. Some examples of that could be extreme punishment, like locking the children in the closet, tying them to the bed, depriving them of food or cleanliness, of water, insulting the child, telling the child that he's not good, that they cannot do anything right. All of these are going to be to having really bad effects on the self-esteem of the child. So that is really, really bad abuse to the children.
So
And some of the things that, some of the things that can be signs of this emotional abuse can be over compliance of the child, saying yes to everything.
okay.
Maybe because they got the message that they're not good, so therefore they have to comply to adults. Very low self-esteem, severe depression, anxiety, aggression, difficulty making friends, lagging in development, like physical, emotional, intellectually, and depriving the child of attention, like love or consoling him, and he's not expecting that. He is used to not receiving all that a child in a loving family would always get.
So it's what about the little like nicknames that sometimes the parent gives a child, like could be considered insults by somebody else, but they're nicknames. Are
Yeah.
those emotional abuse?
Oh yes, definitely. I mean, if the child, even if it's not something that other people consider ugly or bad, if the
Mhm.
child doesn't like it, it's more than enough not to call the child that.
Okay.
Because if the child doesn't like it, the message is negative, and it's going to be in detriment of his self-esteem.
Okay. Okay. And so telling a child, for example, like, I don't love you anymore. You're I'm not gonna love you ever again. Is that considered emotional abuse?
Yes, definitely, because the message is very clearly, I'm withdrawing my love from you because you are no good. You do not deserve to be loved. So I think it's very important for parents to give the message in a different way. I love you. I would always love you, but I cannot accept your behavior.
Mhm.
That is what I do not like. And I don't think you should do that. So the child is able to see this is what apparently I'm not supposed to do, but my parents are still my parents and they still love me. But if I repeat the same behavior, they are going to get angry at me again and possibly punish me. But they are not withdrawing their love.
Right. And so out of that's kind of like it's very clear. It's the behavior, it's not you, it's the behavior.
Right, right.
Okay,
Exactly. Yes.
good. And so when we notice like the signs that you were talking about, if we notice them, I mean, when or when do we know that we need to report, or how do we even do it?
There are very specific ways of doing it. And Texas is very, very good at explaining step by step what they expect of, reporters. But the law is very clear, and I have it written in here. I'm going to read it. It
Okay.
says any person, and I underline that, any person suspecting that a child has been abused or neglected must immediately make a report. If there is an emergency, call 911 and then call the DFPS Texas Abuse Hotline. So they give the number 1-800-252-5400. You can also make a report online, external link, and it also gives the external link. So that's the law. That's the Texas law.
And
How to
we'll
report.
share those in the comments.
I'm sorry?
We'll share those in the comments for
Yes.
the Facebook people.
Yes. Okay. Okay. So there are some steps in the reporting process. The first is a report of child abuse is not an accusation or a proven fact. You don't need to be sure because sometimes you think, okay, they look like bruises or marks, or the child seems not to have eaten for a while, but I'm not sure. No, the law is very clear. You don't have to be sure. You just have to have a suspicion because there are other people that are going to be the ones investigating. So you don't have to be sure. Do not require a reporter to be certain of abuse or neglect. The degree of certainty which must be met is that the person reporting has cause to believe. So that's the only thing that we need to have a cause to believe. The Child Protective Services Department is the one that investigates, and they will determine whether there is abuse or the extent of the abuse. They evaluate the child's condition, their safety, and if appropriate, then they will initiate action to protect the child. So it's as far as the regular citizens, we just have to have a cause to think that there may be abuse or neglect.
So many people don't take those steps because, like you said, maybe I'm not sure, but it's like, well, maybe I'm not sure. Let's say that I call and I'm not going to make the phone call because they're going to take the child away and then they're going to investigate. Is that how it works?
No, it depends on the nature of the abuse and the seriousness of the abuse, and also who is protecting the child in the home.
Okay.
So that's why there are different things. If it's determined by the child abuse investigator that there is abuse and the offender is living in the home, and the non-offending parent, let's say it was the dad was the offender, and the mom was the non-offending parent, and the non-offending parent is not believing it, so the child is not being protected. So in those cases, and the seriousness of the abuse determine whether the child is being taken out of the home.
Okay.
If the abuse either occurs outside of the home or even if it occurred inside the home, but the parents seem very protective of the child can stay home, and the department is going to offer services in the home. And that's why I recommend, parents, if you're in a situation like that, collaborate with the social worker. The social worker is on your side and is trying to make the best for the safety and protection of the child. Okay. So if the social worker sees that they can be protected, so another step that is important is the law enforcement agency receives the report, but there are two instances in which law enforcement gets involved. Okay. One is if there are physical signs of abuse, because like I said before, those signs are proof that the abuse occurred, and law enforcement take that into account to present to court. The other one is sexual. So even if there is no proof at the time, but if somehow either the child confirms that he or she has been sexually molested, so in that situation, most of the time, the offender is being arrested.
Okay. Okay, so it's again everybody. It seems like the law enforcement and the CPS have their standards, and that's why it's important to call them even if you're not sure, because if they don't find anything, it's like, okay, well, we're not going to continue investigating, and it gives a little bit. It gives a level of protection to the person that is being accused as well.
And the system is not perfect. Many times it could be that you don't find anything.
Right.
So the case is closed, and if you still have that suspicion, go ahead and make another report.
Okay.
because maybe this time, and that's why it's so important to provide as much information as you can when you make a report.
Okay.
Because if CPS doesn't have enough information, they cannot continue the investigation.
So
Like
this,
if they don't have names and addresses and where this occurred and all that. So we have to be prepared when we're making a referral to have
Mhm.
as much information as we can.
especially as professionals, right?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay.
Yes. So so like we say, we have to have sufficient information, names of
Mhm.
parents, addresses, phone number, the nature of the abuse, name of the child, any specifics that we can have. It's understandable that many times we do not have it, but whatever we can provide is going to make it more possible that the investigation goes through.
And if say for example, I don't know, I'm in the household and I want to call, but I'm afraid because what if it comes out that I'm the person? Can I make it
Mhm.
anonymous?
Oh, yes, definitely. Everybody can make an anonymous referral. The only thing is that when you make a report and you give your name and your telephone number, you're gonna get two different identification numbers to
Mhm.
follow up with your report. But if you do it anonymously, of course, you're not gonna get anything because you didn't provide the information at all. But
Okay.
yes, definitely, if you do not want to get involved, you can always make it anonymously. They will still investigate.
Okay. Good. And so how do I, as a parent or maybe as a concerned family member, how do we prevent the abuse?
Actually, the departments in every state, uh, you know, Child Protective Services departments, they
Mhm.
have many preventive services. They have for parents, and in the website they have a pamphlet where they inform the parents in English and Spanish of the different services that they have. Like it can be a mother that maybe is a single mom, has to work, and she's feeling like she's losing her patience, and she's afraid that she may abuse her child. There are parenting classes, there are different pamphlets and information that the parents can get to prevent the abuse, to get into that point.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. And even the therapy that one can take and um breathing exercises,
Yes.
um, just recognition of everything that's going on, constant communication with the child,
Mhm.
letting them know like, hey, you know what, nobody has the right to touch you.
Yes, and
And
maintaining communication maybe with the teachers, maybe even asking them for help,
mhm,
um, resources. They can always be provided to you if you feel that um, you definitely want to prevent that from happening.
right, right. And if for any reason it's just getting the help, just getting any kind of help,
Uh-huh.
talking to
Yes,
maybe
yes,
your pastors, your priests, and
yes. There are any resource. Exactly.
okay,
Children are our most valued treasure. They are the
yeah,
future of our world, and we must feel that responsibility of taking care of them, to help them grow healthy and happy, so that they can become better parents.
right,
Um, you know,
absolutely.
so it
So
is
it's the
important for us.
advocating and giving voice to those that need it the most.
Exactly, exactly. and especially the little ones. The younger than 6, they need our help. If we feel at any time that they may be at risk or they may be suffering some abuse, by all means, let's take responsibility for that.
Okay. Good.
Okay.
Well, is there anything that I forgot? Is there anything you'd like to add?
One thing just to make distinction of, like, if you consider a situation an emergency, remember, call 911. That's the emergency. If there is emergencies, but they can be investigated within 24 hours, then use the child abuse hotline. And if there is something that may take a little longer, but definitely needs to be investigated, then the child abuse hotline. So,
Good.
the website, I'm sorry, the last one.
Okay, perfect.
So, okay.
Well, thank you very much, Leti. I do appreciate that you were able to teach us this. The experience that you have, I mean, it's extensive, and I think it's really important to actually share it with people.
And I mean, I do it with all my heart. It's very, I feel responsible for. I want to share all this so that we can take care of them.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. And
You're very welcome.
if anybody that's watching this, they'd like more information, by all means, you can contact us through the chat, or you can just send us a direct message, or if you want to call, our number is 915 209 1234, 915 209 1234. Yeah, if you want to make any kind of appointment too, our address 6955 North Mesa Street. We're Mesa by Wrestler. It's Suite 304. And again, this is Counseling of El Paso, and we hope that this was educational for you. And if you like it, share it with your friends and family, because I think it's really important.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and take care.
Bye.